the sky's the limit. As these tools become more robust, kids will be the future entrepreneurs, and they're going to have access to tools. And I don't think they're going to be technically kids anymore. I think what we're going to see is 13 to 18-year-olds in the next 10 years operate at a business level very much like a 30 to 40-year-old now. So if anything, kids are going to have the opportunity to also sit at the kitchen table with the big adults and compete too. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, all right, hello everyone. Welcome to The Future is No Code. I'm excited to be joined by the CEO of Elliot, Sergio Villaseñor. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me, David.
Awesome. Well, if you don't know, Elliot is an incredible no-code e-commerce platform. They make not just beautiful e-commerce sites, but the entire process extremely easy, fulfillment, everything. So welcome. Maybe give a little bit of thoughts on Elliot, what you guys do. That'd be great for everybody.
Gotcha. You pretty much summed it up perfectly right there in a short sentence.
All right. Awesome.
But essentially, Elliot's the first commerce platform that enables businesses of any size to instantly sell and ship globally without any coding or plugins. So as you said, David, someone's able to launch a store, they're able to sell a product, and they're able to ship it with all the different things that come with shipping, from commercial invoices, customs forms, duties and taxes, all pre-packaged into every store that they launch. So they just have to focus on building brand, building an audience, and creating dope products. We take care of the rest.
Yeah, that's what we like. That's what we like. All right. So we have kind of a few different topics we want to talk about here at The Future is No Code. We try to ask everyone the same exact questions. That way, at the end, we can kind of get a sense of where all the high-level experts in the space kind of coalesce, maybe where they disagree. We're going to start just with a little bit of intro to no-code. So when did you get into no-code, and why did you maybe start your company? Just give a little background there.
I believe that I've always been at least writing the no-code theme. And starting as an engineer, one of the things that I always tasked myself with was creating software and products that didn't require business operators to have to ping me all day for changes. So I think as an engineer, no code always stuck out to me from an architecture standpoint and a design of product perspective. So that way technology can be more of an enabler. So I think foundationally, I've had it since I started in e-commerce as an engineer dating back to 2009.
Cool. Awesome. All right. And then this is a little bit, I'm trying to get everyone to kind of get on the same page here. We're a little bit all over the place. What do you think your definition of no code is? As in, like, what do you consider to be no code, and maybe what do you not consider to be no code?
That's a great question. I believe no code is not having to actually add code to a repository and being able to just create an application in a very visual way with maybe minimal scripting, or like creating data automation and workflows using something like Zapier. So I believe it's being able to work within tools, some lightweight scripting from a JavaScript perspective, but other than that, nothing.
Okay, and then kind of a couple of clarifications there. So you mentioned keyword, there was application. Do you think then, I guess, so I'm just trying to push here a little bit, do you believe that like email templates would be like no code, something a little more on the lines of, like a MailChimp type of thing, or is application kind of like a key component to that?
I believe the biggest component is, as a business owner or operator, or the front line person using the software, no code should allow them to execute any task without having to change the application that they're working in.
Okay.
That means surfacing visual building tools, so that way you can drag and drop and create, aesthetic preferences and layouts. But it also means having a data layer already integrated within the applications, so that way you can do cool things with tokenized data. For example, with Intercom, you're able to build complex campaigns and drips using pretty much every data point from Intercom, and then also as a company. So giving users that ability to do it seamlessly makes you a no-code platform, in my opinion.
Awesome. All right. And then, so the space hasn't always been called no code though. Obviously, like you're a little bit implying like, this stuff has been around for some time now, obviously as technology has gotten better and better. So what, like, when do you think we started calling it no code, and maybe who do you attribute like naming it to, if you can name a particular individual?
I would say that I can't name or an individual or pinpoint an exact moment in time.
Yeah.
I believe that the no code movement really took off once VCs got introduced to the marketing jargon that is no code.
Yeah.
I believe all good engineers want to create applications that enable the users to operate seamlessly within them. So I think if anything, it's intensified over the last 3 to 5 years with the rise of like Squarespace and Webflow and really great visual editing tools, and obviously the insurgency of venture capital into that movement as well.
Cool. All right, last one in this first section here. What there's a little bit of a grammatical debate going on. Do you think it's no dash code, or is it no space code, or hashtag no code? What are you going to go with for our official terminology here?
Ooh, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with the dash.
Okay, all right. You're a dasher. All right, that sounds good. I feel like this is gonna be like tabs or spaces with developers. All right. Okay,
Like,
so what's up?
oh, no, I was gonna say we've been putting our own flavor of no code.
Yeah.
Because aside from the ability to sell and ship instantly, the beauty of Elliot as a commerce platform is that you don't have the idea of leveling up or graduating to another platform.
Yeah.
So we go from no to low, meaning you're able to stand up a store without coding anything, but you're also given the toolkit to build really robust front ends, specifically a JavaScript front end. So we're looking at kind of coining a term like NOLO.
All right. All right.
But you heard it first here.
All right. I like it. I like it. Okay, so one big thing that always kind of comes up, either when we're talking with high-level people like VCs talk about investors, or just kind of friends and family, to kind of everybody. Everyone's really interested in the space, mainly because like how is it going to actually affect everybody? So we're gonna go through a couple different groups and see like what you kind of predict it will how it'll impact a bunch of these things, definitely from like a general perspective. So the first group are like businesses. So what do you think this means for entrepreneurs, for small businesses, and enterprises? You can take each one of those kind of individually if you want.
Sure. For entrepreneurs, I believe that we're going to see a completely new type of entrepreneur because of the accessibility that no-code platforms give them to validating ideas. If anything, you're going to have smarter, more efficient entrepreneurs and better ones. For small businesses, I believe that no code coupled with really powerful infrastructure behind it enables them to compete with essentially the next question, which is enterprises. So if anything, it's leveling the playing field for small businesses to compete with large market companies. And for enterprises, it allows them to act like a small business or entrepreneur in the sense that they can move more nimbly, they can test just as quickly, and now they're not shackled to 8 to 12 month builds where by the time you get something out, the original idea is already outdated.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think it's going to mean for like, I guess then like the employees and the makeup maybe of an enterprise, that sort of level?
Honestly, I would say recruiting for enterprise companies has been very difficult given like the bureaucracy and timelines. So if anything, I believe having cooler technology within an organization will enable them to recruit really great talent and make enterprise sexy again.
Cool, nice. Okay, next group is like the current, what do you see as like traditional like tech group. So obviously this is like a little hotly debated in terms of like, what is this gonna mean for maybe traditional developers? What is it gonna mean for designers? And then what is it gonna mean for like project managers and the handoffs and things like that happen and all that kind of the traditional design process.
Gotcha. For developers, I believe it's going to allow them to focus on building core technology that moves the needle and kind of freeing themselves. I mentioned this earlier. A lot of times when I was an engineer, I would want to create products where I knew the business owner wouldn't have to come back to me. So in order to do that, developers have to think through problem sets much bigger. or on a greater scale with better granularity. So if anything, I think developers, what it represents for them is a new bar that they have to kind of adhere to, but I think it will make the software that they create much better. So if anything, it's going to make better developers. For designers, I think it's going to allow designers to focus more on the content itself versus the aesthetics and layout. So instead of trying to figure out how to mix and match puzzle pieces, I'm more interested now as a designer on creating what the actual puzzle looks like versus trying to make it all fit together within platform constraints. And from a PM perspective, it's going to help, man. I mean, I think project managers and product owners are always like the person juggling priorities, figuring out how to allocate resources. Having as much of the core platforms done in a no-code way will allow them to focus on prioritizing features and builds that help move top line and bottom line, not just kind of the, hey, we got to stay afloat type of initiatives.
Cool. All right, next group is kind of the like consulting group. So what do you think this is going to mean from like maybe like traditional dev shops to more like freelancers and agencies? You know, there's already no code agencies popping up and things like that, to more like also like on the other end of the spectrum, like what is it going to be for like more like non-tech developer consulting? Is more like business consulting, or, you know, that sort of the side of the equation.
Yeah, we can start at the end.
Yeah.
For non-dev consultants, I think we're going to see a rise, and I think this goes back to entrepreneurs too. I think more people are going to become consultants and feel confident that they can actually not just create a strategy, but also execute on it. One of the biggest things that I had as I moved from working internally to a consultant was that you can develop a strategy, but then the company has to go execute on it. And sometimes that's just a little draining or a letdown because you put a lot of time and effort into creating that strategy. So I believe non-dev consultants will be able to create better strategies that actually get executed and see an ROI much quicker. For freelancers and agencies, I mean, I believe that they're going to take these type of tools. I think for freelancers, agencies, and dev shops, it's almost like the same group.
Yeah.
I believe the services that we see typically with this group being like design, web development is going to change. Because I believe that once you kind of standardize that, it's either going to be about creative or data. So I think you'll actually see more traditional creative shops, or you're going to see technical dev shops that are more data driven, that help brands kind of take the data that they have within these applications and build out either product roadmap or data automation and workflows to third-party software. So that way they can do cool things like email and whatever.
Cool. All right, last group here of kind of like the future. So this is a little more like high level, but like how do you see this impacting society? So I'll take these one at a time. So how do you see this impacting like our personal lives, I guess?
Let's see. For society and the personal life, I believe that no-code tools will give us back more time. So if anything, it's going to enrich our personal lives because we're going to spend less time building one-off things that are highly custom to validating ideas with some type of underlying framework. And ultimately, to have time back, I think that's the most impactful thing that anyone can get. For kids, it's really like, I would say the sky's the limit. As these tools become more robust, kids will be the future entrepreneurs, and they're going to have access to tools. And I don't think they're going to be technically kids anymore. I think what we're going to see is 13 to 18-year-olds in the next 10 years operate at a business level very much like a 30 to 40-year-old now. So if anything, kids are going to have the opportunity to also sit at the kitchen table with the big adults and compete too. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for like it's like the new age lemonade stands, will be lots of like e-commerce shops or any types of those things will be like, kind of incredible to see that transformation happen.
Yeah. I mean, I look at things like in North America where kids are told like, you got to go to school and you have to go to college, you have to get in college debt and all this bullshit. I think what these tools are going to do for kids is enable them to kind of live a different life, not go down the traditional path. And I mean, what that does from a cultural standpoint in terms of like being an American and going to like school, I think all that shit's going to be dead, and kids are just going to be able to create their own path and lane and be able to make cool stuff at a very early age.
Cool. And the last one is like, what do you think this means more from like society's like economic disparity type of situation?
I believe these tools are going to enable financial inclusion. I mean, you're going to have a complete leveling of the playing field. People in third world countries are going to now have first world tools. And what that does is it changes lives. Now you have creators of products that are able to sell them, create brand awareness, get their name out. So if anything, as a society, I believe we're going to become borderless. We're going to be able to have tools that enable creators to compete with bigger brands. So if anything, I think you're going to see third world countries become first world, and that they're going to level up much faster because of it. And if anything, we're going to be introduced to an entirely new generation of product creators, entrepreneurs, because of these tools.
Cool. All right. So next set of questions is kind of like, I'm trying to get everyone to actually predict, maybe not specific dates, but date ranges of like when we think a lot of these things will kind of happen. That way, at the end, we can kind of see, hey, like, here's the average prediction of like, when this might happen. Maybe we can get some of these right in the end. Maybe we get some of these wrong. All right. So they're in no order, but when do you think it'll be as common to make an app or like no code application as it is like a PowerPoint presentation?
So it's already happening. Like, we live in that day and era now. For example, I was just doing an investor deck, and then I realized that investors are pretty much 90% on their phones. So instead of making a horizontal perspective deck, I just made a simple like one-page app that allows investors to kind of scroll through on their phone because they're just looking at decks on their phone. So how do you make that more presentable given the type of device that they use? So that's happening now.
Cool. All right. When do you think colleges or universities, and then also like kind of like grade school, when do you think schools will start teaching these types of products?
I see this is taking a little bit longer to be adopted. I think the education system in the United States is extremely slow. However, what I do see is entrepreneurs starting companies that offer these courses as an alternative type of education. You see this with Lambda School. I believe that this will eventually kind of trickle down into grade school, and you'll start to see those type of companies offer no code or coding classes at a younger age, given kids want a different type of education. And the current education system in the United States is not set up for quick change or keeping up with modern technology.
Yeah. So do you have any? So do you have a number prediction there? Like 5 years, 10 years? What are you thinking?
I mean, this is already happening. You don't have to go to Harvard you can go to Harvard or you can go to Lambda School, So like we're living in that day and age now too, where you have access to an alternative education that may be more in line with your personal goals, as well as just what you want to do. Like, I don't have to go to 4 years of college to know that I want to be a programmer. I can pick up a course at 16. I can be educated. I can become proficient in the technology, and I can go get a job if I want to. So that's now.
Let's see. When do you think there'll be more products launched on Product Hunt that are built with no code tools than maybe traditional coding or traditional development?
I'll say we're like 2-3 years away.
Okay. All right. Cool.
And I believe that there's also alternative platforms to Product Hunt that are more no code focused. So it's like a transition phase. I do believe though, in 2 to 3 years, you're going to see the trending now, the top 5 badges be no code.
All right, cool. I like that. All right. This is a little interesting, super interesting one for you because you're kind of in the no low, right? But like, so obviously like no code tools are getting more and more powerful, right? And part of that is like, you have to, like, it gets a little bit into the low code where it's like, where you can put some, JavaScript and some stuff in there. I guess from where the traditional like low code are right now, when do you think no code will functionality meet that? And then I guess, what do you think will happen, and how long do you think before that kind of like happens?
Totally, that's a great question. I believe that no-code tools, this will happen as no-code tools grow and evolve over the next, I would say, 2 to 5 years.
Okay.
I believe that they're going to manifest themselves as pricing within the no-code tools. And you're going to see basic tiers basically be no-code, and you're going to see enterprise tier being low-code. And the beauty of that is that when a no-code tool can do that successfully, you now don't have to have that user kind of level up or graduate off your platform. You can provide them tools to start and scale on one platform. And I believe that the good no-code platforms that are able to do that will be the next generation of top tier companies and startups and unicorns as we know them today.
Cool. Okay, so the next one. All right, so when do you think we'll see a product? You know, there's definitely a lot of really successful no-code products out there, or products that are built by no-code out there right now. But when do you think we'll see one like as successful as, let's say, in terms of like product and users and popularity as like a Trello or like TurboTax or HelloSign, kind of on that level of like, you know, not necessarily like IPO, but very extremely popular apps that more traditional people know? When do you think we'll get there with a no-code product?
David, that's why we created Elliot, and that Elliot's going to be that. Come on, baby. You know this.
When do you think it's going to happen then?
It's already happening. You just got to go at Twitter @signhello_IM.
I like it. All right, cool. Okay. When do you think there will be more freelancers and agencies and dev shops using no-code tools than there are ones that don't?
That's a good question. This ties back to that concept of, you know, where does no and low code start and stop? I believe as no code tools become more robust and just as a company mature more to where they have not just the no and low code, but also the underlying growth infrastructure from a partner perspective, you're going to see freelancers, agencies, and dev shops begin to adopt these tools. So I believe that happens over the next 1 to 3 years as the no code community and products within it become more mature.
Okay, cool. All right, final question, this prediction. When do you think our global leaders, you know, presidents, politicians globally, when do you think they'll start like talking about no and low code, like applications?
I believe it's going to happen within the next decade. You're going to see entrepreneurs push the boundaries of what governments can control. You're going to see these platforms, specifically no-code products, enable a different type of entrepreneurship, enable entrepreneurs to scale much more quickly than before. And once from like a social economic perspective, it begins to affect like cross-border trade and selling goods across borders, and governments aren't able to control those transactions. I believe that's when you're going to see global leaders begin to adopt and start to talk about no code, because it's going to impact how governments make money.
Cool. Yeah. All right. And then final question. We always like to end on, you know, it's a little open-ended question for you to take, but what's maybe the most interesting thing you've seen built, or what's the best story of something you've seen because of this, you know, no code, low code revolution? Like, you know, what makes you kind of inspired?
Yeah, what inspires me personally with no code, it touches on a lot of the themes that we talked about with regards to enabling entrepreneurship in third world countries and providing tools to creators of products that didn't have access to that just even maybe last year. So when I'm able to log into like the Elliot platform and see that we have sellers in Somalia or Peru or Pakistan and have them like creating stores and selling, I think for me, that's the most inspiring thing, because now the software, it's not just a platform, it's providing hope and opportunity, and both of those things are priceless. So when platforms, specifically no code, can do that, I think that's the real magic and secret sauce.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you for joining me on this edition of The Future is No Code. It was awesome having you. You know, I can't wait to see the big things ahead for Elliot. You know, if you guys don't already know, go check him out on Twitter, and you know, go start selling some stuff on Elliot.
That's it. Thanks, David. I appreciate the time, man. It was a pleasure.
All right, see ya.